All right, this is Dr. George Gonzalez, and I'm back with Dr. David Pascal. We took a little bit of a break, and I wanted to continue our conversation, but instead of focusing on elite athletic performance, I want to talk about the tougher cases that doctors deal with, and most doctors give up on these patients, or they just refer them, and they keep referring them out because they really don't have many answers for people. One of the things that's unique in quantum neurology is all the neurological work that we learned in school was basically designed to find a weakness, and then we just write it down. There was nothing to do for any of these weaknesses found before quantum neurology. Am I exaggerating, Dr. Pascal?
No, that's true. You know, in school we learn about the 12 cranial nerves and what they each do, and how to assess them. And so someone comes in and they have some neurologic deficit, so we evaluate their cranial nerves, and then what? There's no,
right.
What, we're going to give you an HIO adjustment? All right, maybe that might help. Maybe 100 years ago, when there weren't other factors weakening the body with all the toxins and whatnot we have now. But that doesn't work these days. So we learn about the cranial nerves, but there, as you say, there is no treatment, or there was no treatment up until quantum neurology.
Right, and the amazing thing, it's not just in the chiropractic profession, we're both chiropractors of course, but in the medical profession, acupuncture profession, any of the healthcare professions, professionals that I've trained, they learn these nerves and all the nerves in the traditional neurological exams that we do, but they didn't have a follow-up to the examination. They just simply did the test. If it was weak, they would just document it pretty much, and then, okay, well, let's see if it's any better later. And you know, I know we've both had tremendous success with this work, but you have some wonderful stories that I'd love for you to share.
Sure. Well, just in terms of, to start with cranial nerves, since you brought it up, I had one woman come in. She was about 70, and she had lost her sense of smell 50 years earlier. And she heard that we do neurologic work, so she came in. I did a complete workup, you know, can you smell this, 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 this? She had no sense of smell that I could find, and gave her quantum neurology treatment, one treatment, sent her home, said, you know, come back for your follow-up. I think she lived out of town, so it was a week later. She comes back, and she had full restoration of smell. Wow. Yeah, it was amazing. And she said that one day she's in her kitchen, she's doing something, and she says to her husband, honey, what's that smell? What is that? That's just terrible. What is that? And she goes, or then she says that her husband goes, oh, honey, that's the garbage. So sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. You know, had another woman who had lost her hearing. Actually, my office manager's mother had lost her hearing about 20 years earlier. If you spoke in a very loud voice, she could hear that, but certainly at a conversational level, she could not hear anything.
Right.
So my office manager's parents lived out of town. They came to visit her. I said, by all means, bring your mother in. We did a workup, definitely a profound hearing loss, gave her one quantum neurology treatment, and when I was done, I brought the husband over and I said, go ahead and say something, and he, in a soft whisper, he said, honey, I love you. And his wife looked up, you know, she'd been deaf for over 20 years, and she goes, did you just say you love me? You know, so that is very rewarding to be able to do that. We had another woman who had throat cancer, and they removed a lot of tissue from her throat. They had to remove a third of her tongue. They had to take a muscle from another part of her body, put that into her tongue, graft some skin off of her leg onto it. I mean, just, it's amazing what medicine at its best can do. The surgical skill is unbelievable. But although that left her with the ability to talk, you know, she didn't have good control, but at least she could talk somewhat. But she lost all taste. Wow. She couldn't taste, so food meant nothing to her, and
right.
You don't realize how big a joy that is, what a role it plays until you lose it.
How many years between?
I actually can't remember if it was 5 years or 10 years, but it was a significant period of time. So she came in, we did our work on her, and two things occurred. One is she went from talking like this to be able to speak like this. And the second thing is she had taste returned.
Wow.
So she just loves, loves, loves food. She's mad at me now because, you know, she gained 800 pounds eating all this food she can taste now, you know. It wasn't 800 pounds, but she can actually taste and enjoy food.
That's incredible. Now, you know, people who may not be familiar with the cranial nerves, there's a lot of nerves happening in the tongue. You know, you have cranial nerve 7 and 9 for taste. In the tongue, you have cranial nerve 5 and 10 for sensation. And of course, you have cranial nerve 12 that moves the tongue. So, you know, like you said, miraculous surgery to be able to reform that tissue, to be able to do the physical movement, which is the cranial nerve 10 movement, which is for the enunciation that was restored, was restoration of cranial nerve 12. But the taste, of course, is cranial nerve 7, 9, and 10. Incredible to be able to restore all those.
Yeah.
And, you know, when people have these issues, very common the rest of their life is living with the result of the damage of these nerves. So when oftentimes we work with people, we tell them that under normal circumstances they would have to live with these weaknesses for the rest of their life. Would you agree with that, Dr. Pascal?
That's very true. And I had one woman come into me, and she was about 80. And ever since she was a little girl, she had severe vertigo, severe motion sickness. Just getting in a car and driving one block in a car would make her vomit.
Wow.
Yes. And because she was so sensitive, she spent most of her life in her house. Most of her life walking in her neighborhood because she could tolerate that motion but couldn't tolerate the motion of a car. On the rare occasions where she did have to go somewhere, she would take Dramamine or some other motion sickness thing, and you know, so her whole life had been that way. And she came to me, and we treated her 2 times, and her motion sickness completely went away.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And that was maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And to this day, she still is fine.
I love it.
So.
I love it.
It's truly amazing.
Now, you said she had that for several decades.
Right.
Decades. And I know you've worked with a lot of children, and you mentioned one that had a corpus callosum.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called. It's like a corpus callosum, or corpus callosum, for those of you that don't know, it's the connection between the right side of your brain and the left side of your brain. And there's children, the Rain Man from the movie was a classic example of one of those people who was born without a corpus callosum. So, very interesting. I've worked with a few cases of those before, and I don't know if it correlates, but very challenging to communicate with the child that I personally worked with. Why don't you tell me about?
Yeah, and that's the case too with this young girl. Her motions were quite random when she first came in to see me. You know, there's no intelligible sounds coming out of her mouth. They seem to be random and garbled, and her quality of life wasn't very good. So we've been working with her for a couple months now, and it's just amazing. She can play games like on an app, like these balloons would come up on a screen, and then you'd have to actually touch each balloon to make it pop. Right. And she can ascertain now the the trajectory, the path of those balloons. She knows which one she's popped, which one she hasn't popped. That's quite a lot of coordinating going on there. And over the period of time for her care, her sounds have become more and more focused. Her physical direction and control of her body has become more focused. And this week, she actually said the word milk, which for many is a simple thing. For her and for her parents was monumental.
Absolutely.
So we hope to continue, of course, her progress. Another cranial nerve patient that I wanted to mention, I had an athlete come into me, a high school athlete, 17 years old, very good, national class runner, strained her hamstring. She came in for me to work on her, and during my exam I noticed that one of her eyes is just moving all over the place off to the side, and I asked her what occurred, and her mother is right there in the room. She says, "Oh, I didn't tell you?" I'm like, "No, what had happened?" She didn't write it in the history. Well, this young lady was born 3 months premature. She weighed less than a pound.
Wow.
Right, and her lungs weren't developed, of course, because the lungs and the eyes are some of the last things that are developed. And so they had to put her in an incubator, you know, with high oxygen to help get that tissue oxygen saturation up. Unfortunately, the oxygen damaged her vision. And in her left eye, her peripheral vision, instead of basically about 150 degrees this way and 160 degrees this way, because the cheekbone and the eyebrow and the nose kind of, it's not 180, right? We lose some. Her vision was about 10 degrees from her nose to her pupil and 15 degrees up and down. She had this little tiny window.
So like this little spot.
Right.
She could look.
So
in one eye only, or both eyes?
In the left eye.
Okay.
So to look at you, she would have to turn her eyes and look at that, look in that direction.
So this
to bring that little window forward.
Wow.
Now, in addition to that, in both eyes, her visual acuity was 2400.
Wow.
Now, legally blind is 2200.
Correct.
So, in that left eye, not only did she have only a little window, but it was 2400. So what you or I could see from 400 feet away, that would be a pretty big sign.
Yeah.
She'd have to be 20 feet away from just to see that.
Incredible.
Horrible. So I asked the mom, well, can I document that? And she said, yeah. So I brought out my Snellen eye chart, did my cardinal fields of gaze, did a complete workup, and that's exactly what she said. 2400, little tiny slit, about 7% of her entire field of vision was all she had. So then we treated her. I gave her one treatment, and she opened up her eyes, and when she opened her eyes, she started to cry. And her mother, who was across the room, I can see, I'm looking at my patient, but I can see the mother starting to get out of her chair because her 17-year-old is starting to cry. So I said, is something going on? And she started to cry harder. So now the mom is up, out of the chair, coming toward me to hurt me. Because I've hurt her daughter, apparently. But I knew what had happened. So I said, tell me what's going on. You know, like, tell me quick before your mother hits me. So she goes, I can see. Her mother literally stopped. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I can see everything. Her entire field of vision, George, was restored.
Ooh.
The mother fell onto her knees. It was a true miracle. And when I retested her, she had 100% of her cardinal field of gaze, her entire field of vision, and her visual acuity had gone from 2400 to 2200. That was almost 4 years ago. I'm still in contact with her. She never lost those gains from that one treatment. And that's quantum neurology, baby.
I love it. Ooh, you make me cry over here, man.
That is worth crying. That was truly special.
Absolutely. You know, there's it's always wonderful to help somebody, but it's so special to help young people because you know that those gains will last them throughout their life, and they have a different trajectory of life.
Absolutely.
After this is done, it's the best.
It truly is. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's such a surreal experience for me, and I know you know the story, but for those of you that don't, my wife was injured, and I developed these techniques to help her restore from a moderate spinal cord injury, and I had no idea or understanding at the time at how powerful and how valuable these techniques would be, and it's surreal. Dave's on the other side of the country, and he's helping people in their healing over there, and all the doctors I trained as well around the world are doing this work, and I'm here in Los Angeles, and people are getting
better all over.
They're getting better around the world. It's surreal, and it's a very special gift that we share.
That's certainly true, and as you know, at the end of my day, when I get in my car, and I'm driving home, then I'll call you up.
Absolutely. And
all the time I go, George, let me tell you who you healed today, and because I'm not getting those people better. I'm an extension of you and your work, and I'm doing your work and to the best that I can. And that's what's making these people see again, or walk again, or hear again, or taste again. And it's an honor.
Well, it's an honor for me too. We've been together a long time. How long has it been now?
I think about 12 years.
12 years. And
That's right. quite a while.
It's funny because most people don't know how we met. I was a guest speaker at an event, and Dave saw me do a shoulder demonstration up in front of the room, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine, but my shoulder, you got to fix my shoulder." And you came out, and we were fast friends, and I corrected your shoulder there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I learned something recently, and I think this will help those that are listening. What I found as a chiropractor, I've often struggled trying to get people to understand what I'm doing or believe what I'm doing. And as a quantum neurologist, it's even tougher, because we go, well, we take someone that's been blind for 17 years and treat them one time and they can see, and people have difficulty believing that, even the ones that want to. And we all know that people will call us up as potential patients, and they go, let me ask you a question. Can I just ask you a question? And we go, yeah. And then we answer that question. And many patients or potential patients will ask a handful of questions to get a better understanding of what we do, right, or how we do it and all of that. And they go, oh, okay, now I get it. And then they'll go, okay, help me.
Right.
But other people will come up, and they seem the same as that first group. They go, hey doc, can I ask you a question? Or, hey, I have this problem, or a friend, can I ask you a question about it? And we go, sure, and we answer their question. And then they go, well, can I ask you another question? And, yeah, so then we answer that question. And then they go, well, I have another question. And one more, and one more, and one more. And this second group of people, they can ask you 1,000 questions. You will answer, or I will answer those 1,000 questions, and still they'll go, well, I just have one more question. You know what I'm talking about, right? And I've never in my entire life been able to understand the difference between the two. And I always described it as one type of person is sane, and wants help, and the other type is just some kind of nut that wants to attack you and not ever have any resolution, because you can answer all their questions forever and they still have another one. And a couple of weeks ago, I had just had that experience with someone that had a horrible problem. I answered 1,000,000 questions. They still didn't want my help, and I was frustrated. Uh-huh. I've been doing this 26 years, And those people frustrate me. So I was talking to one of my patients as I'm treating him. He was like, "Doc, you look a little flustered today." I'm like, "Yeah, well," and I told him what had happened. And he goes, "Oh, there's a reason for that." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, there's two types of people." And I said, "Yeah, could you tell me about that?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Look, there's one type of person that's looking for a solution.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to solve a problem. So they will ask questions until the problem is solved." Which is why when I met you and I first saw that shoulder demo that you did, I thought, that's a bunch of manure. That's got to be some trick. He just wants, all my money for his stupid thing. I doubt that that really works. And then instantly my next thing, because what I want are solutions, is, but if that's the real deal, I need to know it.
Right.
So that's when I came up to you and I asked questions until I had my questions answered, and I go, "Wow, okay, I'm on board." The second type of person, my patient was saying, is they are not looking for a solution, they are looking for a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you answer their question, they don't have a problem. So now they have to ask another question. They are looking for you to finally say, well, for this it doesn't work, or for this it's not an answer, or for this it can't help, at which time then that's what their goal was, so then they're happy.
Right.
Since quantum neurology can handle just about anything, we can answer these potential patients or patients' questions forever, and they will still keep asking because we haven't given them a problem yet. We haven't given them we can't do that.
Right.
And once he explained that to me, I was like, oh wow, I feel so much better.
I feel better too, because I dealt with these issues, whether it's on answering questions on Facebook or otherwise, and I had somebody ask me a question, and then, and I felt I gave a very positive answer. Hey, we have the opportunity, if there is nerve supply to the area, there is an opportunity for rehabilitation and healing. And the response I got back was not what I expected. It was, well, I thank you for your honesty, and, more like thank you but no thank you. But it's like, hey, I gave you the best possibility that somebody who's paralyzed or somebody who has a serious condition.
They weren't looking for a solution.
Right.
They are looking for a problem.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's any other experiences you want to share?
Sure.
One you told me that I wouldn't believe. I haven't heard it yet.
Okay, sure. We'll tell that. And I got one or two others. But this man came to me with a shoulder problem. Coincidentally, it's hilarious. So he comes and he's about 68 years old, very regal British guy, and he comes in and he says, "Dr. Pascal, I hurt my shoulder, and I understand that you're very good at shoulders." So I don't know if the mic picked that up,
right.
but he said, "Dr. Pascal, I understand, I hurt my shoulder, I understand you're good with shoulders, can you help me?"
And he had a laryngitis or...
And he sounded like he had laryngitis, right?
Yeah.
So I said, "Sure, I get really good results with shoulders now."
Yeah, that manure technique.
Right, because I'm looking for solutions. And, but what's up with your voice?
Right.
And so he continued to talk in a low, raspy voice. You could barely hear, really a whisper. And he's like, "I've been this way for 50 years.
Wow.
That's what I said, wow. And how did that happen? He said, "Well, I grew up in South Africa. I used to love to rock climb. Sometimes I do freehand, sometimes I'd be on a rope. And on this one occasion, I didn't have any problems with my throat. I was a healthy, young 18-year-old. I'm climbing up this rock face. I'm way, way up this mountain. and a sudden storm blew in. And it came in so quick, there wasn't enough time to safely go down, there wasn't enough time to go up, so I just locked myself into the cliff face. I was safe, just uncomfortable. And he said for a couple of hours the wind was blowing in my face and rain, and it was just very uncomfortable. And when the weather cleared, then his second down, you always have a guy down on the bottom when you're climbing, came out of his shelter, and the patient climbed back down.
Right.
And when he went to speak, he had that laryngitis. He was just whispering.
Right.
He was just whispering. And he said, so he went to the doctor, bunch of doctors. He ended up joining the Air Force. He became a pilot. He had tons of medical exams, all sorts of different care in his life, standard medical care, alternative medical care, and he still always had a whisper. Now, he did say he could speak in a normal voice, but if he did, he had dagger-like pain in his throat. So he only spoke in a normal voice when he absolutely had to, because it was very painful. So I did a full workup on him.
Right.
And from our quantum neurology viewpoint, and I found that there was one thing that was an issue for him, where I found a neurologic deficit. And so I gave him one treatment, and then I said, okay, go ahead and talk to me. And he started to speak in a normal voice, completely pain-free.
Wow.
So he went 50, and that was like 7 or 8 years ago. I still see him, every once in a while. He speaks totally normally, completely pain-free. One correct treatment handled a problem that had been there for 50 years.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you. So he was one of my favorites.
That's awesome. I've helped people with laryngitis before, but that's definitely takes a record for the length of time that the laryngitis has been gone.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was. And when this is over, I'll tell you exactly what that one nerve was that I found that was the issue.
Just one thing that, I know your experience with this, but for those that are watching, that we have tremendous success with restoring nerve function after several years of damage. Now, traditionally, the medical chemical model of healing dictates that after a debilitating injury or nerve damage of any sort, you have about 6 months to recover any function. So anything gained up to 6 months is considered maximum recovery. And we're talking about 50 years later. There's cases that I've worked with people who are paralyzed for dozens of years and we're recovering function. Would you mind talking about that idea?
Sure. We had a young lady come in this year who was driving a little four-wheeler off-road thing along the side of a cliff. I never asked her why she was doing this, but she was.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
Seemed like a good idea at the time, apparently. So she's driving along. She actually had a teenager on the back, and the cliff is where you are, and she's driving like this, and a teenager tapped her on the shoulder to ask her a question. Wow. So she did one of these. Wow. So she looked over her left shoulder, turned the wheel this way. The vehicle took a sharp right turn and drove off the cliff. It was a 150-foot cliff.
Wow.
That's 15 stories.
Wow.
So go to downtown LA.
Go to number 15.
Go to the 15th floor, open the window, and step out.
Wow.
And that's what she did. And she went down, and as luck would have it, she hit a tree. And the tree branches absorbed her, and through the grace of God, she didn't die.
Wow.
But she's paralyzed from T4 down. She spent the last 3 years in and out of Duke Neurology. They said, you will never move your legs again. Ever, ever, ever move your legs again. You can forget about that. You'll never fire your core muscles again. And when she came in to see me in a wheelchair, one of my other patients had been telling her for 2 years to come see me. for 2 years, and for 2 years, whatever. Finally, she came in and couldn't move anything below T4. And of course, she was no bladder function, so she was catheterized, and she would use a catheter, and she was putting out about 1,200 cc's of urine a day. And as you know, most people that are paraplegics, the thing that leads to their premature death is kidney failure. You just can't have that type. It's not just the muscles, the nerves of the muscles that are affected. Quite often the organs are as well. And when you're only putting out about half your urine output, it's going to take its toll over time. So on her first day, we did our workup on her, and when she came back on the second day, I'm thinking the number one thing I need to do is something about longevity. So I gave her a treatment, quantum neurology treatment, specifically targeted to upregulate kidney function.
Right. So it'd be the L3 nerve mainly, but L1, 2, and 3.
Right. And after that treatment, the next day, her urine output went from 3 years of averaging 1,200 cc's to 3,600.
Wow. Oh, like triple.
Yes.
Wow.
So now she's mad at me because she's having to cath all the time. I said, you know what? I just bought you an extra 30 years to be mad at me all you want.
That's right.
So that was wonderful. And this work that we do, and I think this is an important point, the stories that we're sharing now are all these one-time fixes, but not everyone's a one-time fix. You give the most beautiful example. Someone could come in to see us, and they may be metaphorically at the bottom of a 100-foot well.
Right.
And we can do a treatment that metaphorically, neurologically, brings them up 10 feet.
Right.
But to them, there is no change, and for us looking at them, there is no change. And we give them another treatment, and it brings them another 10 feet. But still, no apparent outside objective change, no subjective objective change from the patient's viewpoint.
Right.
And you can treat someone, no change. Treat them again, 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 no change. And then, two things can happen. Either you could treat them forever and nothing would change, or something could change. And with this young lady that I'm talking about, on her 8th treatment, she came in and we transfer her out of her chair onto my table. She's sitting on the edge of the table, and we do some stuff, and I said, kick your leg out. Now, I see a lot of severely neurologically impaired people, very blessed to do it for so long, so we have people that are coming from all over the U.S., from Asia, from Europe, so we see a ton, and sometimes their exact details I tend to forget when I'm looking at them, their history of how long they've been impaired. And on this day, in this case, which was her 8th treatment, I said, okay, we did a treatment. I said, go ahead, kick your leg out. And she struggled and got that leg out. Wasn't pretty, but she did it.
Yeah.
And then she brought it down. It's kind of hard to tell if she pulled it down or it fell down. So I come back and feel, go ahead, stick that leg out again. She brings it out, pull your leg down, and I could feel she's actually firing those muscles. Then I said, do the other leg. I said, that's great. And then this little light bulb voice went off in my head. I'm like, oh yeah. And I said, when was the last time you were able to move your legs? She goes, oh, Dr. Pascal, don't you remember? I've never been able to move my legs. And then her whole story popped back in my head. Yeah, for almost 3 years, she'd never been able to move her legs at all. And on that 8th treatment. So what would have happened if, so that, her 2nd treatment, her kidneys changed. Right. But on her 3rd treatment, George, nothing happened. Right. On her 4th treatment, I treat, no change at all. 5th treatment, treat, no change at all. 6th treatment, treat, no change at all. 7th treatment, treat her, absolutely 0 change, nothing.
Wow.
Now, at that point, patients get frustrated, staff gets frustrated, we get frustrated. It's like, you go, gee, I'm sorry, we treated you 7 times. You know, I guess you're just not one of those people that's gonna get better. You know, and when these people come to me, I say, hey, maybe you're in a 100-foot hole and we brought you up 50 feet.
Right.
We don't know. We know quantum neurology works. We've helped others. You know, let's just see. And on that 8th treatment, she moved. And now she's doing sets of 100 leg extensions, 100 leg flexions, 100 abductions, 100 adductions, 100 straight leg raises. She's spending 90 minutes a day, George, in a standing frame. She is close to walking.
Wow.
Close to walking.
Well done, buddy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome. Thank you.
Incredible. It's, you know, it's just the stories get better and better, and it's it all comes back to the nervous system. For me, it's all about, you know, maximizing human performance through the nervous system, and we have an expanded understanding of the nervous system through quantum neurology. We think of the entire body, of what most people would call their body, the skin, the organs, the muscles, as contributing as factors of the nervous system, not only the brain, the nerve, and the spinal cord, which is what we were taught in school. And I feel that these concepts expand our ability to help people. And one of the things that I always tell doctors is, if there's nerve supply to an area, there's opportunity for rehabilitation. And, you know, and it becomes easy once you post this question: which doctor would you rather go to if you were injured? Would you rather go to the doctor that says, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you? Or would you rather go to a doctor that says, you know, there's nerve supply here, there's an opportunity for rehabilitation? And it is a rehabilitation process. It's not a magic bullet or anything like that, a magic pill. And, you know, you've had so many wonderful cases, and a lot of these cases you've shared were one-time events. I really appreciate you sharing this one. My wife Lori, you know, we developed the work on Lori. It took probably 10 years to fully recover her. And it was a lot of learning processes in between. I say if we were to, God forbid, have to deal with that same injury today, I feel it would just take a series of months to get her back to 100% with all the knowledge that we have now. So, you know, developing it took 10 years, but we're okay. So, you know, I think that's important to share with everybody.
Absolutely.
Any other stories you want to share, or we should be?
Did we have something else that we wanted to share? There's so many,
There's
you
so
know,
many.
so we could just go on and on and on and on, you know.
Well, let's end on this high note.
Perfect.
And how, if patients want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, they can always Google me. You can always
Right.
Google Dr. David Pascal. I'm in Cary, North Carolina. My office number is 919-380-8000. Or you can send an email to Dr. Pascal, D-R-P-A-S-C-A-L, helps, all one word,
Spaces.
right? Dr. Pascal helps at yahoo.com, and that will get to me.
Excellent. And for those doctors that are interested in learning more about quantum neurology, you can visit our website, quantumneurology.com. And we have information on training as well as seminars that we have. You get started with DVD training to get started right away with your patients. And you can go to seminars and get the fine-tune, the hands-on. For those of you that are patients that are not near Cary, North Carolina, or that are not elite athletes that need Dave's care, we do have a doctor locator on our website at quantumneurology.com. You go in there, type in your zip code, and then you'll find the doctor nearest you. You may have to expand on the miles radius feature of the thing there on the internet, but you should be able to find a doctor near you.
Absolutely.
Dave, thank you so much. I love you, buddy, and thank you for being with me all this time, and thanks for sharing this wonderful work with everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you. Love you too, man.
Awesome.